about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So I am really getting into college basketball. I was very much into college basketball, when I went to UNLV years ago, and the Running Rebels were the Final Four at least 2 years in a row. Under the Jerry Tarkanian days. And, then I got busy, and then I really got into football, and I just haven't had a lot of time to watch sports. Well, I've made sure the last few weeks to really get into college basketball, and wow, March Madness, fantastic. I'm just a huge fan, and boy, do these kids bust. And then there's also the women's team, and I understand we also have the NBA. I just can't take it all in, but I've been watching, college basketball and the NCAA tournaments and the NIT. And it was interesting because there was this one, I don't know if this was Friday or Saturday, and I don't forget the team because I watched, I don't know how many games on it that was going on in the background this weekend. But there was one coach that was really mad at the way his team set themselves up. And then I guess ball went out of bounds, and he just turns his back to them as he's going back to his assistant coaches and the sideline, and he screams, "What the?" Okay, and he used a bad word, rhymes with Donald Duck. And I would have been laughing if I was sitting there, because he's like, "What the?" Because he's, upset at his players. And all the sportscasters or everybody kind of sitting there on the, is it called a sideline of basketball or courtside? Maybe it's courtside? Sitting there courtside, nobody laughed. They looked at him like, okay, he's pissed. The coach is pretty mad there. But I watched the psychology between the coaches and the players. And some of these coaches, God, they have a lot of love for their players. And you see these players, and you're like, on one end, you're like, they're getting beat up. They have other players cussing at them. And who knows what they say on the line of scrimmage in football or when you're sitting there. Gosh, I forgot. I used to play some basketball. I forgot what it's called when you get yourself set up and you're one-on-one, with the defense or offense. And you see these players, and they're kids. Kids, they're in they're little babies. One is a freshman, not one. Some of them are freshmen, little baby boys. And you look at them going, God, they're getting beat up. But then on the other end, are they getting such a resilience? Because everything isn't, oh, good boy. Oh, you're so good. Oh, you're perfect. Here's a medal for being last. They actually, and studies have shown, they actually do better from a mental health perspective. Because if somebody screams, "What the flip?" All right, I'm not going to say the actual word on air. For a lot of you guys are confused. You think my show is only podcasted. It's also on terrestrial radio. So we're on radio stations throughout the United States, so I can't cuss. A lot of you said, why don't you just cuss and say the word? We know how you talk, Daliah. I can't, because this isn't just podcasted. This is also on terrestrial radio, so I have to play it safe. Okay? Yeah. So trust me, you don't need to hear me say any bad words. But maybe these, as opposed to a lot of the new generation of kids and adolescents, where everybody, is it muddy cuddles or kitten glove, and oh, it's okay, that's okay, you came in 15th, that's good, and all, rather than that, they have a coach screaming at them, like, what the blank. And this way, when you get yelled at later, maybe you have some resilience. Now, I don't want any coach to be abusive. It was interesting when we were watching Hell's Kitchen years ago, and my little kids were watching Gordon Ramsay and him yelling and screaming, and they would be like, "Oh, that's scary. He's kind of scary." And I'm like, nothing compared to what I had in training. Doctors yelling and screaming and smacking charts all over the place and surgical trays and throwing temper tantrums. I go, he's nothing. I would be giggling at that. And they're like, really? And we talked about how, abusive training, there's no place for that. Nobody should be yelling and screaming and throwing things. That's wrong. But I would like to see more studies on, as we see the athletes have better mental health, because they're active, they're exercising, they have goals, they have a team, they have a community, they have a family. Is it also that once you go through that sort of boot camp, you don't really sweat the little things? Now, I've seen people get so mad because somebody tells them off when they're driving. I get told off every damn, I don't know, mile. I mean, somebody's always telling me off. Or they don't like if I drive too slow. They don't like if I drive too fast. They don't like if I'm in the middle lane and they're coming up behind me and they want me to go to the right lane because they're going faster. Go to the left lane. I'm in the middle lane. I like being in the middle lane. I don't want these cars coming on the on-ramp. Leave me the hell alone. And so I get middle fingers thrown at me all the time. Who cares? That's nothing to what I've, lived with or what I've been through. And so, we do have studies showing athletes have much better health outcomes, both physically and mentally. We also see post-athletic depression, like we saw with Michael Phelps after the sport, after the Olympic trial. What's next? When you've been the best you've ever been, it's all downhill from there. And you feel like you could never make that goal. How do you go from being so goal setting to, okay, it's okay to have somebody else beat me, and these players losing. I think you saw a coach. God, who was it? Was it UConn? Sorry, I think I bit my tongue. I think it was UConn. Sorry, something. I hope I didn't. Okay, I bit my tongue. Sorry about that. I think the coach was almost in tears. So classy, though. You could see the love of the sport he has, the love of his of his players. But I mean, it's sad. It's crushing. You think you're going to make it to the Final Four, and here you are, and you're looking at the brackets and you get so close, and oh my God, these games were just a basket away. Yeah, it's interesting how they call them field goals. Yeah, but I think it's mixed. I think athletes both have that chance to have improved health outcomes and mental health and much sturdier resilience. But it's not easy when they lose, and it's not easy when they leave the sport. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So how many of you guys did 23andMe or Ancestry.com? Remember a few years back, the biggest in vogue thing to do was to find out who you're related to. For some of us, that was the biggest mistake because now we have all these relatives we never really wanted, and asking for money. And I thought it was cool because apparently I have some Greek blood in me. I might even have the shape of my ancestry. The majority of it is Northern European, but I have in my family some Iberian Peninsula, some Greek. There was even a little bit of Japan. Now, my guess is had a lot of hoochie mamas in my family, that like to kind of roam, and we like men in my family. We love men. So I wouldn't be surprised if I have a much more diverse sort of background. But it was interesting. And I remember when I was doing it, well, one of the reasons why a lot of people were doing it, was because at the time, if you showed that you had Hispanic descent, or you were Latino or Latina, that could really affect your college tuition prices, and et cetera. So everybody and their mother was like, you better go and see what you have in you. And if you have it, then we could claim, it was all this. Okay, let's find some ethnicity so you could get a deal. And I was just fascinated because I knew, much of my family's roots and, what happened during the Holocaust and some of my family having to escape Russia in the early 1900s. But I really want to know how far things spread. I knew we had some Mediterranean on us. So, it was exciting. But when I was looking at my dad, I remember people said, don't do that because then China can get a hold of your DNA. And I thought to myself, well, the thing is already my DNA is in labs. Every pap smear I had, every biopsy for cancer. So my DNA is already out there. Now, I spit out my car window like my daddy used to. So I'm sure, not all the time, I'm sure my DNA is all over Las Vegas Boulevard. No. So I wasn't as fearful. However, California Attorney General is telling 15 million 23andMe users to delete your data ASAP because 23andMe is filing for bankruptcy. According to Attorney General Rob Bonta, in a statement on Friday and being reported by New York Post, given 23andMe's reported financial distress, I remind Californians to consider invoking their rights and directing 23andMe to delete their data and destroy any samples of genetic material held by the company. So from what we understand, if you ever want them to destroy your data, you can download the results, then you tell them to destroy it, and they're supposed to get rid of that saliva sample that you sent. My kids wanted me to have the dog spit in it and see what came out. I was like, a lot of people thought I was a dog, with my looks, and I got a lot of hair. So I didn't think there would be much difference. But the company has had financial issues to the point where now they are filing for bankruptcy protection. Now, just because they're filing for bankruptcy protection, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going under. This is a financial strategy. But you do wonder if the company goes under, if they don't pay the rent, if they decide, we're walking, what happens to your data? It just sits there. Now, I don't panic about that because, like I said, I've been getting blood work and I've had biopsies. So for any of us and don't be afraid to go and get your medical work done. But there are, certain samples that they will keep long term. Not all of them will do it. 23andMe, though, does, because then they keep reanalyzing the data. Then other family members, when there's newer things to look at, they might be able to or they can expand on what they have of yours. And so I guess the biggest fear people have is China. Everybody brings up China. China can get the sample or get your DNA, try to clone you, try to do something with it. I'm not fearful of that in my generation. I do wonder what people are going to do in terms of cloning and in terms of precision killing later. In terms of knowing what your DNA is. But I just think it's so easy to get. I could touch a glass and you have my fingerprint and sweat, and I think you could pick up some cells of my finger. I think it's going to be very easy to get other people's DNA. If somebody wanted to come up and cut my hair, they could have some of my DNA from that. So I'm not as fearful, but the AG of California has a point. If the company's going under and you're worried about your data, then download so you have what you need. Although now you have a download paper trail, so you might want to protect that as well. And then tell them to destroy your samples. But another story to this is, why are they going under? Are people just not as interested, in terms of what their background is and who they're related to? Is it that people don't want to spend the money? Now, I got mine because I think there was a Christmas special where you could buy it for like $50. But I think the test kits are a few hundred. Maybe people just don't have the money. Maybe people don't want to know their roots. Maybe people don't want a database. Maybe the reason why 23andMe is going under is there's a lot of distrust, especially since there's a lot of race shaming. Our country goes back and forth, and I don't understand why all of us can't be created equal and be treated equal. But, there's this, there was this, anti-black sentiment for years. There was anti-Semitic sentiment. There still is anti-Semitic sentiment. There's anti-white sentiment. There's anti-Asian sentiment. And maybe individuals want to keep their ethnicity to themselves. Now, a lot of us Jews, we were very, very proud and loud after we saw what happened during the Hamas incident, but you had a lot of individuals that said, you know what, I'm going to lay low. Look at what's happening on college campuses. They won't let Jews go to class. This is looking like World War II. I don't know if I want people to know this isn't me, but a lot of individuals may be like, you know what? I think I'm going to keep my cards close to my chest. We should not in America feel that way. But does the 23andMe bring up religion? They don't bring up religion, but they bring up race. And so I don't use 23andMe. I used another company, but they basically said Ashkenazi Jewish. They didn't say German, Austrian. And I'm like, how do you know I'm Jewish? I celebrate Christmas. I have Christmas trees. I, am a Jew. But, that was the label they gave. Now, I'm proud of it. But imagine somebody who's like, look, I don't practice anymore. There's a lot of anti-Semitism. Nobody in my family has, but Judaism, if you are Jewish, there's a bloodline going back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Bloodline to Jesus. There's a bloodline. So I'm proud of it, but I think there's a lot of people that are like, I don't want there to be that data, because look at what happened during Nazi Germany. Look at how Hitler was trying to find people that could have Jewish blood. And didn't he have some Jewish blood, reportedly? So, I think people are having a much different attitude. There are a lot of labs that will do genetic testing for precision medicine, which I'm really excited about. For some of you, a statin works really well. For others of you, a statin hurts your liver and you're very uncomfortable taking the statin. Well, it'd be nice to know that ahead of time. Some of you are allergic to penicillin. Some of you weren't allergic to penicillin. You just had a virus, and so you got a rash, and everybody thought it was the antibiotic the doctor gave you. I think having precision medicine based on your genetic makeup is the right way to go for medicine. But people are fearful of other people. And that's why 23andMe is filing for bankruptcy. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this was an interesting study. They say prostate cancer is rising in individuals who don't like to get prostate cancer screening. I apologize, my audio's coming on. Now, you would think that would be like, well, duh, okay. Prostate cancer is rising in people that don't get screened, because if you get screened for it, then hopefully you can either prevent it or... But this is interesting. Researchers are warning that men who regularly dodge prostate cancer screening appointments are 45% more likely to die from the disease. It's the second leading cause of cancer death. Overall is lung cancer. But among men, prostate cancer is now the leading cause. And they say, now it was lung cancer. So I still believe lung cancer is the biggest cancer. But as we're starting to cut back on smoking and tobacco use, we are going to see other cancers start to rise in terms of their prevalence or frequency. So we've looked at prostate cancer as something that was an unnecessary illness to test for. Remember, we spoke about this last week where they were saying, yeah, doctors are ordering unnecessary tests and they don't need to be screening for prostate cancer. Yes, we do. Long-term data, according to Fox News, said that PSA screening programs could lead to a 20% reduced risk of dying from prostate cancer. And black men are at higher risk of a more invasive and aggressive prostate cancer. So they should be screened regularly. And this attitude of, no, we don't need to screen. People are going to die of something else. They're going to outlive, or the prostate cancer is going to outlive them. I disagree. Now, cancer is chaotic. And I have been, barking about this for years. I think maybe we get 300,000 new cases a year. 35,000 people could die. But people don't want to get their prostate screened because, one, they're being told by the media that it's a waste of money and it's an unnecessary test. 2, some people don't want the rectal exam for somebody to do a digital exam to feel the size of the prostate. Some don't want to spend the money on the blood work. And if the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force doesn't say the screening is needed, the insurance may not pay for it. So the latest guidelines from 2018 from the U.S. PSTF, the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, says that they recommend men 55 to 69 make an individual decision about whether to be screened. So it's not just a blanket screen. They're like, well, if you're 62, you and your doctor can decide. They say if you're over 70, the potential benefits do not outweigh the expected harms, and these men should not be routinely screened for prostate cancer. Now, these were the USPSTF recommendations in 2018. American Cancer Society, they have a different tune. They say age 50 should screening start for men who are at average risk of prostate cancer and are expected to live at least 10 more years. Age 45 for men at high risk of developing prostate cancer, including Black men, African Americans, those who have a first-degree relative, father, brother, son, diagnosed with prostate cancer at an early age. And then if you are at high risk, more than one first-degree relative who had prostate cancer at an early age, start at age 40. Although some urologists would probably screen you if you have one family member with it. And so that would recommend a PSA, which is your prostate-specific antigen, and then a digital rectal exam may also be done. If you decline the digital rectal exam, that should be okay. Most doctors will they'll be happy that you're doing some sort of screening. So don't be fearful of going in and getting checked just because, oh man, I don't want a rectal exam. But men who choose to be tested who have a PSA of less than 2.5 may only need to be retested every 2 years. But if your PSA level is over 2.5 or 2.5 and higher, you may need to be screened yearly. Now, the reason why is most men who are really in good shape have their PSA under 1. But once you're starting to flirt around with the 2s and 3s, even though 4 is the upper limit of normal, we want to make sure it's not growing. The prostate-specific antigen can rise if you have prostate cancer. So, looking at this data, where they looked at a 20-year follow-up data from ERSPC to look at the link between the decline of screening invitations and men's risk of dying, they said of the 72,460 men invited to partake in prostate screenings, only 1 in 6 were non-attenders and skipped every appointment. Now, this study was from the Erasmus MC Counter Institute at University Medical Center in Netherlands, and they found a 45% higher risk of dying of prostate cancer compared to those who actually went in and got screened. Now, the big argument people have to not screen is they're putting men through a pretty uncomfortable, so they're worried about false positives. Let's say your PSA is high because you have an infection. You go through biopsies, you go through the worry, you end up not having cancer. Yeah, some people are going to be a little irked. But what I notice a lot of urologists do is they might give you an antibiotic first. See if your PSA goes down. If your PSA doesn't budge much and you're not having signs of prostatitis or pain, they're going to screen for prostate cancer. It's more likely you have prostate cancer than an infection if you're not having the other symptoms of infection. So we've had individuals who had prostate cancer, underwent the prostatectomy, and had lifelong, shall we say, issues like erectile dysfunction, pain, issues with urinating. So we don't want to make somebody go through a treatment that they don't have to. But we have turned that narrative into, okay, you don't need it. Remember during COVID, people were skipping their mammograms. They go, well, because it's COVID. What do you mean it's COVID? Well, COVID's going on and nobody wants to go to the doctor. And so we don't have to go. We get to skip it this year. Do you think breast cancer is sitting there going, oh, well, everybody's supposed to stay home and socially distance or stand on the little sticker that's separated by 6 feet while you're standing on a sidewalk waiting to go in and get your mammogram done? No. Cancer doesn't care. And we saw studies where cancer was rising and being found at a higher stage. Earlier last year, or late last year, we found a study saying cervical cancer is being found at higher stage, at least stage 3, because fewer individuals are going for their pap smears. So what's the moral of the story? Get yourself checked out. All right, just because you get screened doesn't necessarily mean you have to go through the biopsy, go through a prostatectomy, go through a mastectomy. At least take that first step. Then you have the knowledge and some education to then make an educated decision. You could also get a second opinion. If you don't like what one urologist says, you could go to another urologist and ask for their opinion. But don't just skip the screening altogether. And look, I understand ignorance is bliss. I like to go about my day, do what I have to do, and not have to think that something could be brewing. And I can't stand going and getting my mammograms. I hate doing that. I hate getting colonoscopies. I can't stand it. But I do it because I dislike cancer more than the screening test. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So there's a lot of support for banning cell phones in schools. And RFK Jr. is in support of that. However, he has drawn some backlash because he is saying that the cell phones need to be banned because of health effects and what it does neurologically to kids. And their links to cancer. Let me see if I have his exact quote. I apologize. I might not have his exact quote, but he's sparking some backlash with that. Yeah, here we go. He told Fox and Friends that cell phones also produce electromagnetic radiation, which has been shown to do neurological damage to kids when it's around them all day and to cause cellular damage and even cancer. So people are concerned that he may be incorrect with that. It depends on the study. I mean, there has been studies going back and forth on electromagnetic radiation, brain tumors, acoustic neuromas, but the NIH has looked at these studies as not very good studies. A lot of these studies have been found to be very limited. There might be some bias. As a physician, what I've noticed is being that everybody and their mother has a cell phone that is emitting, luckily it's non-ionizing radiation because it's still in the level, even 5G is not at that level where I think it's ionizing, so it's non-ionizing. I have not seen a huge uptick in brain tumors or acoustic neuromas. So I can understand why there might be some concern, but we haven't seen the numbers. The problem is when you're talking about a brain tumor, just one more is scary. So, I mean, we want to be really, really strict and diligent of doing nothing to increase brain tumor incidence. But being that everybody and their mother has a cell phone, we would then see a huge wide array of those numbers rising. So in terms of tumors, no. In terms of electromagnetic radiation and cancer, there have been some studies looking at that. But overall, the NIH outlines this in April of 2024 of how they looked at the studies, and overall, no statistically significant findings that have to relate to that. But I don't think RFK Jr. is wrong in that these cell phones can be damaging kids, whether it's socially, whether it's mentally, whether it's eye strain. Remember years ago, we talked about cell phone blindness, where if the whole room is dark and then you're on the cell phone and then you kind of can lose your sight temporarily, or it's just all bright and you can't, it can cause vision changes. I don't think a child should be on their cell phone or having access to their cell phone. I think it should be in a cubby. I think where they can grab it. I also don't understand. I mean, yeah, I used to chew gum in school, nice kind of, pass notes to the boys in class. But if a teacher says phones in your backpacks, phones away, phones off your desk, you listen. But I think what's going to solve the cell phone issue is changing around the school day, which I've said for years. The school day should not be an 8-hour day, because a lot of parents are like, how does my kid have no access to me for 8 hours? As I've said before, your classes should be core classes, shorter, like 20, 30 minutes in the morning. Get all the core done. Lunch could be at home or lunch could be on site. And then the afternoon is all your practical learning, where you learn how to farm, you learn how to do construction, you learn about law, you learn about medicine, depending on your grade level and how complex it is, so that by the time you're 16, you've had access to all the trades, you've had access to most of the fields out there, and then you graduate by the time you're 16, and then 17 and 18, you're getting your associate's degree or you're getting your trade certification for plumbing, electricity. So by the time everybody's 18, there's your free college, people, right? And it didn't cost the taxpayer any more money. And they're pretty well versed. They all have first aid, all CPR training, another language learned. They know how to self-defense. They know how to farm, hunt, fish, grow crops. They have a good idea of what's out there. And that's the way I think it should be. So then the cell phone issue becomes less controversial, because if these classes are only 20 minutes long, cell phones down for 20 minutes. You get that course concentrated, teach the lesson, practice the lesson, do the lesson, and then fine. You got a 5-minute break, check your phones away. Now we're going on to English. Now we're going on to history. And so if we restructure the school day, I don't think it's going to be that traumatizing where these kids don't have access to their phones. But I don't think RFK Jr. is wrong, and that these phones affect these kids neurologically. I think they do. Staring at a 2-dimensional screen is not good for your brain. You're not learning. You're not feeling, touching. You're getting distracted. if you're getting distracted by your phone, you're not learning something. That is neurological. And so, he's not wrong. Are kids getting cancer from their cell phones? I think that's unlikely. And if there is any data out there, it would be very, very rare. But I do like the ideas of kids having a phone so that they can access their parent in the event of, God forbid, a school shooting, or they need help. I remember telling my husband we are not getting the kids phones. This is ridiculous. They don't need a phone. And then I was like, wait a second. I need to know they're safe. I mean, if they're responsible enough, then they could call mommy if they need to. Oh, my babies need phones. I mean, boy, did I do a 180 on that. So it is a popular, though, a lot of Americans want, apparently in one study done last fall, 68% support a classroom ban on cell phones, while 36% ban an entire school day ban. And, I know people want to say that RFK Jr. is wrong, and so he is unfit for duty and he's spreading misinformation. But from on the whole, to look into, what this is doing to a child when they're always looking at a phone at the age where they're supposed to be developing and climbing trees and throwing pebbles into lakes and learning how to fish with grandpa. Yes, I do believe these cell phones are negatively affecting our kids, and not to mention the depression and anxiety. And all the ads and all. I mean, it's the kids are getting manipulated by their cell phones, and yes, that does not only cause psychological issues but neurological issues. So maybe we aren't seeing higher cancer risk in kids. God forbid. Thank God we don't. I think it should be studied more. There's a lot of things that need to be looked at and studied. And RFK Jr., that's kind of his thing. He's like, look, we're taking all these things for granted. Kids are not learning in school. We could blame the Department of Education. We could blame the teachers not being able to teach. But what if it's the cell phones? What if the reason why the kid is not learning algebra is because they're always looking at the phone? And it's not the teacher's fault. And it's not the Department of Education's fault. Now, I understand why Trump wants to dismantle it and structure it. But, somebody needs to figure out why, when we spend so much per student and we have, the easiest access to food, although we do have, kids in poverty and starving, but we have school lunch programs and we have counseling and we have all these sort of benefits and comprehensive paths for kids who struggle with school. Why are we having so many fail math and reading? If it's as simple as they're distracted because of their cell phones, then yeah, maybe we need to do something about the cell phones at school. I still think, though, they should have at least access to it, even in a cubby. 1-877 Dr. Daliah.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.